We begin tonight in Osun State, where results of the supplementary governorship elections are being expected at the INEC Collation Center in Osogbo, the Osun State capital, where party agents and other stakeholders are gathered for the announcement of the final results. A while ago, clarifications were sought by the PDP-led strategist Dele Adeleke on the discovery of some figures in the inconclusive elections, which he said are meant to be cleared. His request was, however, countered by the APC representative in front of the chief returning officer. Earlier today, voters gathered at designated polling booths across the 7 council wards to exercise their franchise. The supplementary elections was held in some polling units in Orolu, Ife South, Ife North and Osogbo local government areas of the state. The Independent National Electoral Commission had ordered for the election after it declared last Saturday's governorship polls inconclusive. In the meantime, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has raised concerns over reports that accredited journalists and election observers were arrested and prevented from operating in some polling units in Osun State. The concern is contained in a tweet from the social media handle of the electoral umpire, which reads, quote, INEC is disturbed about reports that accredited media and journalists are being arrested or prevented from operating in some polling units. This has been taken up by security agencies. End of quote. INEC had promised to ensure it conducts a free, fair and credible rerun in Osun State following last Saturday's election, which had reports of violence. In the meantime, the United States Consular Office, the European Union and the United Kingdom Embassy appears not to be impressed with the exercise. During a joint press briefing in Osogbo this evening, the envoys alleged intimidation of voters and other irregularities.
The missions of the United States, the European Union, and the United Kingdom observed voting at polling stations in Osun today. We witnessed what appeared to be incidents of interference and intimidation of voters and heard reports of harassment of party monitors, journalists, and domestic observers. We are very concerned by these reports and will be checking with stakeholders to determine the facts. We call on all stakeholders to remain calm.
Away from the elections, civil servants in Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, have complied fully with the directive of the organized labor to embark on a warning strike. Unionists moved around the Federal Secretariat in Abuja, where most civil servants have their offices, to ensure that no one is working pending when the federal government reconvenes the Minimum Wage Review Committee. Public schools also shut their gates against students as the teachers obeyed the directive for the industrial action to comment.
It is no longer a threat. The directives for an industrial action handed down to all members of the organized labor by the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress is real. The Federal Secretariat in Abuja is deserted. Offices are under lock and key. Members of the organized labor also moved from one office to the other, ensuring that no civil servant is working.
As you can see, almost all the civil servants is sitting at home right now. So we are here to mobilize some of our comrade members for the protest.
The workers, we are long overdue of expecting this time. If, in fact, we are not even sure that the Nigerian Labour Congress is serious, but for the fact that they have come up with this period, so the workers are appreciating it, because this started midnight. So you see the level of the people by the end of today, tomorrow, you see it will increase.
Public schools in Abuja are also not exempted. Their gates are shut against students who are forced to return home as teachers enforce the directives from the union to support the strike action.
We are having strike because of NLC. They said workers should be paid more, but we are not happy about the strike. We feel terrible for them stopping us, depriving us of our right of education.
Although some workers in the hospitals and petrol stations in Abuja are rendering services, the situation may change if the strike action continues.
Solidarity forever.
At this press conference, officials of the Medical and Health Workers Union are pledging their unwavering support to the directives of the NLC and TUC to join the strike action.
We wish to state in unequivocal terms our loyalty to the Nigerian Labour Congress and the organized labor, entire organized labor, including our commitment to this present struggle and struggles hereafter. We therefore wish to direct our members nationwide to key into this struggle as a matter of policy and should not rest on our oars until we receive directives from the leadership of organized labor.
Last-minute efforts to prevent the industrial action on Wednesday failed after a meeting between the Labour leaders and Minister of Labour and Employment ended in deadlock. As it stands, the strike is sure to continue until Thursday next week, when a meeting of the striking workers and the federal government is expected to resume.
In the meantime, it's the first day of the 7-day warning strike called by the Nigeria Labour Congress, the NLC. Most government workers across the country are complying with the Labour Movement's stay-at-home directive, while schools have been shut and students ordered to go home. The Labour leaders insist that the industrial action must include every sector of the economy. They are demanding and mandating all affiliates and civil society allies to embark on the warning strike following the federal government's alleged refusal to reconvene the tripartite committee to work on a new national minimum wage. The Nigeria Labour Congress, the NLC, is demanding an upward review from 18,000 to 56,000 naira as the new minimum wage.
The early effects of the 7-day warning strike by the Nigeria Labour Congress can be seen across various ministries and states of the Federation. Public schools, banks, state and federal institutions all locked down in compliance of the call by the Labour Union that there will be no work till the tripartite committee reconvenes and agrees on a new national minimum wage. In the south-south region of Delta and Edo states, students resume to find the gates of their schools locked, as the union remains resolute in its fight in Akwa Ibom State.
Amidst this very position we stand, we are telling the whole world that come rain, come sun, we are ready to take our rights. Yeah!
They are fighting for us. They should pay us the minimum wage. It's not easy. Living is very expensive now. This minimum wage has been long. They've been talking about it. So they should please pay us so that we want to work. We like to work. But let them pay us our minimum wage. And I commend our labor. I commend them so much. And I say God bless them. And I pray that they will succeed in this fight for us workers.
In the North Central, particularly in Kwara and Niger states, civil servants also joined the ongoing warning strike. And in Benue State, the Labour Union is calling for a review of the revenue sharing formula to enable states pay the proposed 56,000 naira minimum wage.
You said right now some states are unable, like Zamfara, to implement the 18,000 minimum wage. Even those who have implemented, like, let me start with Kogi and Osun, which is topping the list, and probably Benue are unable to pay.
Now to the southwestern region of Nigeria. In Ogun State, civil servants at the Okemosan State Secretariat resumed their duties, while workers at the Federal Secretariat located at the Presidential Boulevard did not turn up.
Any labor leader that wants his honor must comply fully with the directive of national body, because we are all affected.
In Oyo State, all federal and state establishments are closed. In the nation's commercial city, the labor union have promised to shut down the airports.
If a port has opportunity to open today, I am very sure they will open tomorrow. Nobody flies in this country, and I'm saying it with all authority of labor of Nigeria.
It is obvious that if the strike continues, the nation's economic activities may be grounded. The government and the labor leaders may have to dialogue again.
On the sidelines of the 73rd United Nations General Assembly, President Muhammadu Buhari has asked Africans in the diaspora to come up with suggestions on how to curtail the menace of corruption on the continent. He was speaking to participants at a high-level meeting on illicit financial flows and checking the existence of safe havens. At the event, President Muhammadu Buhari also asked for new laws and guidelines to ensure transparency in governance. Our correspondent, Ibrahim Adra, reports.
An estimated $50 billion. That's how much illicit funds take flight from the African continent yearly, according to a 2015 study by the African Union.
Excellencies, heads of state and government.
The negative impact of this is huge and a constant source of worry for Africans and their leaders. The continent's anointed champion on the fight against corruption, Nigeria's Muhammadu Buhari, is co-hosting this push to find new ways of checking corruption on the continent.
Some of the effects include draining of foreign exchange reserves, reduction of tax revenue collection, poor investment inflows, and escalation of poverty.
The president, who said he had enlisted the support of the World Bank, IMF and others to locate and recover, as well as repatriate stolen assets, tells his audience what else to do.
If we are to make any headway, is to bring in laws, regulations, and policies that encourage transparent financial transactions, as well as implementing measures that will mitigate the incentives that facilitate illegal outflows from the continent.
This gathering on the margins of the 73rd United Nations General Assembly is to examine, among other things, the role of Africans in curbing the existence of safe havens for illicit funds. Earlier, at another occasion, the president had expressed concern about the slow pace of elimination of nuclear arsenals by states that amassed them. It was an event to commemorate International Day for Elimination of Nuclear Weapons. President Buhari's speech was delivered by National Security Advisor Babagana Monkono. He speaks of the humanitarian consequence of a nuclear weapon explosion.
It is important to focus on law enforcement and judicial cooperation in the criminal prosecution of terrorist suspects, the collection, use and sharing of forensic evidence, digital evidence, intelligence information, witnesses and evidences collected in conflict zones by the military.
President Buhari said there are no easy solutions, but that the existential threat of nuclear weapons must be tackled with undeterred commitment for the security and safety of the world. From New York, Ibrahim Adra, reporting for Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, more on the NLC strike. Minister of Labour and Employment reacts on issues raised, plus politics. As PDP presidential candidates step up campaign to woo delegates ahead of the party's primary elections, and APC releases lists of governorship aspirants. Please stay with us.